Welcome in to another episode of the PFF College Football Show. Max Chadwick alongside Dalton Wasserman here to break down my top 10 cornerbacks in college football entering the 2025 season. And Dalton, we lost a lot of great cornerbacks to the NFL draft this past year, but still a lot of really talented corners returning in college football.
Absolutely. You get this top 10 you put together, and even some of the guys that missed the list that I think certainly have an argument to be on there. This is still a pretty deep group, and I think you're talking about first 2026 guys. And then, of course, there's been a theme throughout your position rankings. We got a couple of 2027, class of 2027 guys in here who are really talented. That's obviously a theme of a lot of these lists, but there's a lot of talent in this group. I think this is one of the better position units in college football right now.
Including a 2027 guy very near the top, maybe at the top of my top 10 cornerbacks in college football right now. I want to give a shout out to Donnie in the chat right now. Just finished week 2 of PFF training as well. So maybe get Donnie here at PFF pretty soon.
Join that part-time staff. That's where I started. Now look where we ended up here on a show next to you, which I guess is something.
Downgraded.
That's something. Yeah,
that's your career arc. It's pretty bad right there. Calvin Felder, a guy in the chat. As I want to remind you guys, you want to get in the chat, subscribe to the channel so you guys can be talking to us throughout the entire episode about these cornerbacks we break down today. And, of course, all the stats I use, and just in tape watching, but all the stats I use for this episode are available to you guys with a PFF Plus subscription at subscribe.pff.com for stats on every single player in college football, every single team in college football, and, of course, every single player and every team in the NFL. And you get access to our 2026 NFL mock draft simulator. The great Trevor Sikkema, our lead draft analyst, is currently in the process of summer scouting for the 2026 NFL draft. So he'll be, of course, updating that big board right now. But Dalton and I kind of collabed on a big board for you guys for the 2026 NFL draft. I believe you can do 3 rounds for the mock draft, maybe 5.
I thought we had enough in for 5.
Maybe, okay, 5 rounds. Okay, 5 rounds, of course. Yeah, so do a 5-round mock draft if you're a true sicko for the 2026 NFL draft. Dalton, my honorable mention corner on this list is a guy that you looked at me and said, how on earth is this guy not in your top 10? That is Eli Bowen from Oklahoma. As a true freshman last year, was one of the 25 highest graded cornerbacks in the nation with an 81.9 PFF grade, 89.4 run defense grade, 7th among all corners in college football. 78.7 coverage grade, was only behind Leonard Moore among true freshman corners in college football. Only 5'9", only 186 pounds. But Dalton, something you told me when we were back there in the studio with Eli was this guy's footwork is fantastic. I thought his ball skills were really good. And he's got an IQ already of a veteran corner.
Absolutely. I think the footwork is the first thing that stands out to me. Honestly, Max, while going back and watching his tape, I thought I was watching Jahdae Barron tape again because you see a lot of the same things where it's really explosive, quick feet. When he gets into his drops and then transitions to break on the football, it looks like he's just running drills out there out of a textbook the way you'd want him to do it. And then you mentioned the 89.4 run defense grade. He's about it. He's about the physicality. Yes, he's smaller. There's times where opponents will shake off of him, but you know what? It's not for a lack of willingness to be physical. This kid is really, really good. He had an incredible true freshman year, and he's another 2027 prospect that we're going to be talking about, I think, a lot over the next couple seasons.
Yeah, really, really talented corner, and Oklahoma's defense is still in a really good spot. They have a great defensive line, and Eli Bowen at corner is going to be one of the better corners that we have in college football. But at number 10, another cornerback now in the SEC with Eli Bowen is Cameron Calhoun from Alabama, transferring to Alabama from Utah. He's one of the 2 transfers that we'll have on this list. 82.8 PFF grade last year as a redshirt freshman, was 10th among all corners in the Power 4. He only allowed 48% of his targets last year to be caught, and he's one of the 30 most valuable corners in college football according to our wins above average metric, despite only playing the 4th most snaps among Utah corners. So didn't really get on the field that much for Utah compared to the other starters in that defense, but when he was on the field, he was extremely, extremely effective. Got a little bit of weight. He's only 6 feet tall, 177 pounds right now, but has really, really good makeup speed. And Dawn, we said time and time again, Alabama should have one of the best defenses in college football. They got a really, really talented corner coming in my opinion, the second best transfer corner in the country in Cameron Calhoun.
Yeah, they got a good one and a really young player at that, but he's 6 feet tall. Calhoun Calhoun's got length. You can tell he's physical at the line of scrimmage. They played a lot of man coverage over there at Utah, and he was just fine with it. I think as a press man corner in Alabama's defense, he's going to be really, really good. You mentioned it, a stacked secondary, but Calhoun, man coverage, zone coverage. Sometimes he can get his hips turned around a little bit slowly. He's still working on some of the zone drops, but I'll tell you what, as a press man corner going to Alabama and all the experience he got last year at Utah, he's going to be just another really nice piece in this secondary. Calhoun's in for a good year at Alabama, I think.
Yeah, I've seen some projected depth charts for Alabama. It doesn't have this guy starting right now, and yes, they do have a really good cornerback room outside of him, but I think Cameron Calhoun right now is the best corner on Alabama. I think he will be one of the starting guys for the Crimson Tide in that defense next year. He's number 10 on my list. At number 9, after having a great Iowa State corner last year in Darian Porter, they have another great one coming back in Jontez Williams. Like I said, Iowa State had the first double-digit win season in program history last year. And really, in my opinion, Dalton, it's because of two things. One, they had great receivers, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel, who obviously now are both with the Houston Texans. And number 2, they had outstanding play from their cornerbacks as well. And Jontez Williams is coming back to school for another year. 19.6 passer rating allowed into his coverage last year, was 4th among all cornerbacks in college football. And just for reference, spiking the ball every single play gets you a passer rating of 39.6. So spiking the ball every play is 20 points better than throwing at Jontez Williams last year. That's how good he was in Iowa State's secondary last year. He's also 3rd among all corners in the Power 4 with a 37% completion percentage allowed as well. Really good instincts in zone coverage, and he picked off 4 passes last year. So yes, Iowa State lost a lot from their really, really good team this past year, but Jontez Williams is still one of the best corners in the country.
If I remember right with that passer rating stat, wasn't Darian Porter number 1 in that stat? Yeah. His teammate was like a 3.5 or something like that.
So basically, just don't throw against Iowa State.
Just don't throw. You're going to have to run the ball against Iowa State. But no, I think Williams, you mentioned it, really, like they all are at Iowa State, really good zone defender, excellent eyes. He's a ball hawk, 4 interceptions, 5 pass breakups last year. Could be a little more physical in the run game, and that seems to be a theme with their defensive backs as well, and that defense that they run. But Jontez Williams, he's got great vision. He's got great instincts in zone coverage, and he's in for another good year because Iowa State's always so fundamentally sound in the coverages that they run. So I think it's going to be, once again, led by Williams. This is going to be a team that you want to run the football against. You do not want to throw into the teeth of this secondary because guys like Williams are picking the ball off left and right.
So Jontez Williams, a great player on the field and a great human being off the field, apparently. Donnie said he met him at a bar one time, and he was a great dude talking to him. So Jontez Williams, shout out him.
There you go. He's better than us.
So, yeah, shout out him. Yeah, don't meet us at the bar. No, that's definitely not 2 guys you want to run into the bar out there. But Don, we have another question from Donnie in the chat, though, before we move on to my number 8 corner, asking about Jermaine Matthews, the cornerback from Ohio State, former 5-star recruit. Donnie's kind of asking, okay, what's going on with him? Why hasn't he really played at Ohio State? What I would say for that is Ohio State's defense was so loaded last year, it's going to be hard to get on the field. He will be, in my opinion, one of the starting corners for Ohio State this year, opposite of Davis and Igbinosun.
He was really the 3rd guy last year. We would see him rotate in at times if Denzel Burke or Igbinosun needed a break. But no, this year I would expect him also to start across from Igbinosun and really get finally that full chance to start. You just had so much experience on that defense last year that there wasn't necessarily a place for him to start. But we did see him rotate in at times last year.
Yeah, so Jermaine Matthews, a guy, he didn't make this list, obviously, but still a very, very talented guy. I'm very excited to see what he could do in Ohio State's defense next year. All right, at number 8 on this list is another transfer. That is Jeremiah Wilson, who's now at Florida State. He actually transferred during the spring transfer portal window. So if you see the article for my top 10 corners of PFF on PFF.com, he actually says he's at Houston right now. He's not. He's now at Florida State after transferring in the spring window. He was actually at Syracuse, my alma mater, for a couple years. Then he transferred to Houston and became one of the best corners in America last year. 86.7 PFF grade, 9th among all cornerbacks in the nation. He had 4 interceptions and only a 46.7 passer rating allowed. He thrives in off coverage at 5'10", 185 pounds. He has really good movement skills and really good instincts to be really good in off man coverage or off zone coverage. So Florida State had a lot of issues last year on their defense, but in my opinion, they got the best cornerback in the transfer portal in Jeremiah Wilson.
Absolutely. I think you mentioned it. He's a little bit smaller, and we're starting to get this archetype of smaller zone coverage players with really good feet who know what they're doing back there, and this is another one. Attacks the football, good vision in zone coverage, good vision in an off man. You mentioned it, 4 interceptions, 5 pass breakups, competitive to the football, 2 interceptions, and a 90 coverage grade against Baylor in the second to last game last year. So Wilson's just somebody, look, look, you mentioned this Florida State team, they need talent. They need talent all over their defense, really all over their team. Wilson's a talented guy and arguably the best transfer that they brought in this year.
Yep. So Jeremiah Wilson, number 8 on this list. Before we move on, Dog, another question in the chat from Brandon Hallam saying, okay, so there's some of these guys for the 2026 NFL draft that could be looking for a corner. Who are some of the teams, do you think, that should be looking to add some cornerbacks in this year's draft?
Okay, I look at one is the Atlanta Falcons, and that's interesting. Well, they don't have a first-round pick, but it could be interesting with A.J. Terrell's little brother, who we'll talk about there down at Clemson. Avieon Terrell is a good player. I think you have them. I think you have the Raiders for sure, a team that's really, they struggled in the secondary last year. Drafted Darian Porter in the 3rd round of this year's draft, but that's a team that's going to need somebody. I think even the Arizona Cardinals still, they just got Will Johnson, but they may need more help on the outside depending on Johnson and Max Melton and any other young guys they have emerged there. So certainly, look, the league, there are not enough good corners in the NFL. So I think really when you look at this position and how important it is now with 3 receivers being on the field constantly, you have this need for every team to constantly look for more talent at this position. So I think anytime you're talking at least in the first 3 rounds, I think all 32 teams at some point could draft a corner when you really look at what they need now to stop the pass in the NFL.
I'll throw a couple more out there. The Rams could really use help in the secondary, and especially the Miami Dolphins. All the Jalen Ramsey news going on right now. If he's not there, that all of a sudden might be the worst secondary in football. So I think they definitely need a lot of help in that cornerback room. 2, the Chargers maybe could use some help at corner. I know Asante Samuel Jr. is still a free agent right now, isn't he?
He has not signed yet, and I think it's going to be a while because he's still recovering. Is it from hip surgery? They said he's not going to sign probably until he gets the medicals fully cleared. So we might see him sign maybe even in August. It's going to be a while before he signs anyway.
I don't think it's a need because the team that needs nothing right now, considering they're the best team in football, but maybe the Eagles try to add a little bit more to the cornerback.
Yeah, maybe. They're going to try it out with Kelly Ringo, and they have Adoree Jackson, but maybe some, of course, as if they need more young guys with Quinion and Cooper DeJean there, as if they need another primetime corner. But this is the idea, is you never have too many. We saw it with Howie Roseman last year. Take 2 corners with your first 2 picks, turn around your secondary, win a Super Bowl. That's how quickly it can happen in the secondary if you pick the right guy. So at all times, teams are looking for these guys.
And I mentioned the Eagles because in our way too early 2026 NFL mock draft, we had them taking my number 7 corner on this list in A.J. Harris from Penn State. He was a top 40 recruit coming out of high school. Originally went to Georgia for his true freshman year. Didn't really play much at Georgia. Then he transferred to Penn State, and he showed why. He was such a highly rated recruit coming out of high school. He finished his true sophomore year as one of the 10 most valuable cornerbacks in college football, according to our wins above average metric, and he only allowed 0.76 yards per coverage snap. He could play on the outside in Penn State's defense, even played a little bit in the slot for Penn State's defense. Really, really good instincts in zone coverage, and Dalton is overall a very technically refined player already.
Agreed. He's built, it's 6'1", 193. He's built the way that you want a corner to be built. And to me, the best part about his game is that Penn State can trust him one-on-one against another team's best weapon in man-to-man coverage. With Jim Knowles coming in, I expect that to be the same, maybe even play a little more man coverage that he did at Ohio State last year. But he's going to feel confident that A.J. Harris can lock up anybody's best weapon. And you mentioned it, comfortable outside, comfortable inside, even times where he would lock in on tight ends one-on-one because he's got a good amount of size to do that. There's reps of him against Harold Fannin Jr., against Mitchell Evans, against tight ends on the inside. So Tom Allen was not afraid to use A.J. Harris as that number 1 weapon in the secondary. On the outside, I'd expect Jim Knowles to do the same thing this year.
A.J. Harris, number 7 on our list. He was a projected first-round pick in our way too early mock draft. Another first-rounder in that way too early mock here at number 6 in Malik Muhammad from Texas. So, yes, they lost a first-round pick at cornerback in Jahdae Barron, who went to the Denver Broncos, but they might have another first-round cornerback in that secondary in Malik Muhammad coming back for his junior year. Only 3 returning Power 4 corners have been more valuable than Malik Muhammad over the last 2 years, according to our wins above average metric. He has 17 forced incompletions over the last 2 years, despite only being targeted on 12% of his coverage snaps. So teams knew, do not throw at Malik Muhammad because he's going to find a way to his football and force an incompletion. He's not an elite athlete, I wouldn't say, but he wins with his instincts and his ability to click and close in coverage. Malik Muhammad has been so good in his true freshman and true sophomore years, and Dawn, I think he could be a first-round pick next year.
You know, it's funny with him because I think it's proof that interceptions alone, and that's always the stat that you're going to look at first, how many interceptions did this guy have? He's only got 1 in the last 2 years, but it's proof that it's not the end-all, be-all when you look at an interception total for a player. Sometimes they get avoided when getting thrown at only 12% of the time. A lot of zone coverage they run down there at Texas. A lot of what Muhammad is good at is just preventing explosive plays, which is also very, very important, right? So I think you're talking about maybe there's a breakout coming with the interception totals, but if he keeps playing as fundamentally sound the way he does the last 2 years, you are going to hear about his name in those first-round conversations because he's got good size, good enough speed, fundamentally sound, and that defense, that zone defense they run down there at Texas, it takes a high IQ to play in that. We saw it with Jahdae Barron last year doing all the things he did. Muhammad, he won't necessarily go in the slot, but when you talk about his IQ on the outside, excellent football player, just doesn't have the flashy surface level stats to go with it.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm always so impressed watching Texas's secondary, just like Dalton said, just how smart all those guys are. Because like you said, playing that zone-heavy defense, you got to be not only good at doing your job, but good at knowing what your teammates' job is as well, so you're not stepping on their toes, and they all do a great job of it. It's why Texas had one of the best secondaries in college football last year, and why they should once again have one of the best secondaries going into next year with guys like Malik Muhammad and Michael Taff coming back to that Texas secondary. Before we get to the top 5 of my list, I'm going to talk about the sponsor of the show. That is Fabric by Gerber Life. What does your child's future success look like to you? Job they're passionate about, traveling around the world, or just being happy and comfortable. Whatever their journey, you can help make it easier to achieve with a kid's investment account from Fabric by Gerber Life. By making a contribution to your child's future today, you can help give them the means to pursue their dreams, big and small. Fabric by Gerber Life was designed by parents for parents to make it easy to plan for and manage your family's financial path. With a kid's investment account from Fabric, you can start investing in your child's future today. Funds can be used for nearly anything betting for your child, from tuition and tutors to music classes, and when they're adults and out on their own, they can use the funds for anything that they need. It's all online. Manage your child's account and monitor their investments right from your phone. Unique gifting lists can be shared with family and friends, so instead of more stuff, they can help grow your child's investments for their future instead. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to help protect their family. Start investing in your child today at meetfabric.com/PFFcollege. That's meetfabric.com/PFFcollege. meetfabric.com/PFFcollege. Portfolios managed by Fort Washington Investment Advisors Incorporated. Additional services provided by Apex Clear Corporation. All investing subject to risk. Learn more at meetfabric.com. All right, top 5 time now for my top 10 corners in college football. At number 5, in my opinion, one of the more underrated players we have in the nation, Chandler Rivers from Duke. Had a major breakout year for the Blue Devils last year. In fact, he tied with Jahdae Barron for the best PFF grade among all Power 4 corners with a 90.7 PFF grade last year. And the only other player who was more valuable than Chandler Rivers as returning to college football is the guy who's number 1 on this list. And I won't spoil it right now for you guys. But Chandler Rivers is a really, really good football player. Has the versatility to play on the outside for Duke or in the slot for Duke. He's an expert at reading the quarterback's eyes in zone coverage. He's been a weapon as a blitzer, too, for the Blue Devils. He had 9 pressures last year, which were second among Power 4 corners. He just does it all for Duke's defense, and why, Dalton, I think he's one of the best corners in the country, and why he's one of the most underrated players in the country.
No, certainly. He was a very, very good player for Mike Elko the previous 2 years, and this year for Manny Diaz. So you look at 2 different defenses he's played in, he's been spectacular. And then you look at, to me, one of the things that stands out, you mentioned the vision, the IQ, in zone coverage. All right, Power 4 corners in zone coverage grade. Jahdae Barron, first-round pick. Darian Porter, third-round pick. Chandler Rivers was third behind those 2 guys. This is an NFL caliber corner playing in a really good Duke defense that was very high in the coverage grade rankings. He was the number 1 reason for that. I believe we're going to see one of their safeties in the top 10. We're going to see one of their safeties as well in the top 10 of those safety rankings later this week. But no, Rivers is awesome. His vision, his ability to find the football, his competitiveness all the way through to the whistle, to the football. He's a terrific player, and he's somebody we're going to talk about a lot this year. We'll see what happens with their offense and Darian Mensah and all that going on, how they're going to score points. But this defense under Manny Diaz is going to be really, really good again, and they've got some great veteran players in their secondary, including Rivers.
Chandler Rivers, Terry Moore, their star safety. Both of them come back to school for another year. Duke's going to be one of my top 10 secondaries in college football. When we get to that video, I think a few weeks from now we'll get to that video, but Duke has a great secondary returning to college football. Don, kind of a little off topic here, but another question from Brandon Hallam with the Frank Ragnow news coming out. He says, what does the interior O-line class look like? I just want to say right now for the Detroit Lions fans, Great center class.
Next year is the year to need a center. Yeah,
Yeah,
we didn't get hardly any this past year because a lot of them stayed in school. When you talk about we had the interior O-line episode, Jake Slaughter, right? Logan Jones from Iowa, Parker Brailsford from Alabama.
Lalulu.
I mean, there's a good number of there's a good amount of centers right now. Brady Wilson, who I believe transferred to Virginia from UAB.
Yeah.
There's next year is the year to need a center. So look, I'm not saying lose. Look, you're losing the second best center in football in my opinion behind Creed Humphrey when that guy retires. And the Lions, they got to figure out this thing about guys retiring early. But, I think when you look at next year's center class, way better than this year. It sounds funky because it's so specific, but next year is the year. Maybe even that number one guy on your list, Jake Slaughter, might be a target for him.
Yeah.
Maybe even in the first round. We'll see how the year goes for him. But, no, I'm not saying it's good timing because they got to get through this year. But if you're going to need a center, do it in 2026 because there's a handful of them.
Looking at all the positions in college football, center is one of the strongest, I would say.
It is.
Yeah.
All the guys that we thought they might come out this year, a lot of them came back. They came back to school. There wasn't – what was the first center? It was, Jared Wilson.
Jared Wilson was the first one.
He was the first pure center taken, wasn't he?
Yeah. Everyone else is kind of like, oh, he could play center maybe.
You had Zabel. Gray Zabel's the big one that might be guard or center. But think about that. You didn't get a true center in this year's draft till late in the third round. It's going to be earlier next year. There's a handful of guys who could go in that day 1, day 2 range.
Great year to need a center next year, and also a really good year to need a cornerback as well. Number 4 on my list is Avieon Terrell from Clemson, the younger brother of Atlanta Falcons star corner A.J. Terell. And like his older brother A.J., he's at Clemson, and he's probably going to be a first-round pick in the NFL draft. He's a much better run defender than A.J. ever was in his career. In fact, Avieon Terrell last year was 4th among all cornerbacks in the country with a 90.7 run defense grade, and he had 3 forced fumbles, which were tied for 2nd among all cornerbacks in the country. Still really good in coverage, too. He led all Power 4 corners with 14 forced incompletions in 2024. Not the biggest. He's only 5'11", 180 pounds, but like I said before, outstanding physicality for the position and has the speed to stick with receivers and man coverage. So just like his older brother, could be another Clemson corner that we see in the first round of the draft.
Another one who's a little bit undersized, but an excellent zone defender. And you mentioned it being that good in run defense. That's absolutely a bonus, especially for an undersized guy that sometimes you worry about the physicality with him. There's no issue. Terrell's technique is fantastic. His footwork is terrific. You can tell he's the younger brother of a star NFL player because he's got the same pedigree with him. So I would expect him to be a name that we talk about a lot in first-round conversations next year. But really good in coverage, really physical run defender, gives you a little bit of everything, and just another piece. I mean, we talk about Clemson, it feels like now every single episode, and with good reason, right? Did they have a player in the top 10 of every one of your defensive lists? Do they have a safety in there? Because I know we've gotten the first 3 before
I don't think
this.
they don't have a safety.
That might be.
They have some guys I consider for safety.
But they've got like 9 corners who are good, too. There's some other guys who probably could have.
Hampton's great player.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, but Terrell's the biggest name of the bunch, and he's the best player in that secondary. He's fantastic, and another reason Clemson's about to have a really good year.
I think Clemson probably has the best defense in college football next year. There's some other ones that are really good. Texas, Alabama are up there, too.
Texas is up there. They got a lot of talent. Bama's one, I believe, and Notre Dame is still going to be really good.
Notre Dame will be great, and we'll get to a guy.
But Clemson, at all 3 levels, I think that's the biggest thing, is anytime you look at one of the elite defenses like Texas or Ohio State last year, you look at all 3 levels, they've got premier talent at all 3 levels of their defense.
Pretty much every position, too. They're the best D tackle in the country, in my opinion, in Peter Woods. One of the best edge rushers in the country in T.J. Parker. One of the best linebacker units in college football, too. And then the secondary, led by Avieon Terrell, is excellent, too. So I think Clemson's just defense overall. Offense is great, too. It's why I think Clemson's on the short list of teams that's going to win the national title in 2025. Avieon Terrell in a 2026 NFL draft list would probably be maybe CB1 on it, considering some injuries to another guy on this list. But he's number 4 on this list because I want to remind you guys it's for a college football list. And why I'm saying that is because my number 3 guy, maybe as a prospect, isn't the best because of his size, but as a college football player, this guy rules. And that is D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. I mentioned before the size. He's only 5'9", 170 pounds. So, there's usually the old moniker of, okay, the first guy off the bus, usually the biggest guy in your locker room to try to scare the opposing team. D'Angelo Ponce might be the last guy off the bus, but he's still one of the best players that we have in college football. He has been an elite corner in each of his first 2 years. At James Madison, his freshman year, transferred to Indiana this past year. He was one of the 15 most valuable corners in the country at Indiana as a true sophomore. 91.8 PFF grade over the last 2 years is the highest among all returning cornerbacks in college football. There is zero fear in this guy's game, whether it be in run defense, whether it be in coverage. So don't let the size fool you. Usually a very tiny corner like that, like 5'9", 170 pounds, you think, okay, maybe not the best tackler. He's probably got really good movement ability, but not a great tackler or run defender. Not D'Angelo Ponce, man. He's a very physical player. Like I said, zero fear in this guy's game. He's just a dog out there for the Hoosiers.
Well, and you know why he's got zero fear? Because he was a high school teammate of Jeremiah Smith.
There you go.
Down there in Miami. So you're talking about
That's trial by fire right there.
Exactly. Right. And you know what? He went up against Smith in the Ohio State game that we were at. 3 targets in Smith's direction against Ponce, 1 catch for 9 yards. He doesn't care who's in front of him. He is as fundamentally sound as any corner in the country. The lack of size, to me, that's the only demerit you have against him, because as a football player, I could argue he's the most technically sound cornerback in the country. He is an incredible player, especially with all the zone coverage and all the rotations and things that Indiana has in their defense. Ponce is awesome. Like I said, we saw him 3 times live last year, never disappointed. Just terrific all the time, the same guy every single week. You don't see just like, oh, D'Angelo Ponce had a terrible week this week. He's so consistent. 85 coverage grade after, an 89 the year before at James Madison. Kurt Signetti knew this guy was a foundational piece. At least one more year of him in Indiana, but he is undoubtedly, to me, one of the best corners in the country. I don't care about size. I don't care about measurables, any of that. He might be the most technically sound out of all of them.
I remember watching his true freshman tape at James Madison, and I loved it. But I was like, okay, he's going to Indiana now.
Well, it's like a high school kid out there.
Yeah, he's leaving the Sun Belt, going to the Big Ten. How is it going to look against, Big Ten receivers like Jeremiah Smith? And he was still one of the best corners in the country.
Well, and you're talking about,
incredible.
You're talking about, look at the teams, some of the teams I played. I know everybody gets on their schedule, but you look at, okay, he had a 93 coverage grade and 2 picks against Washington, who's got Denzel Boston and Giles Jackson and those guys, right? He's got to run defend against all of these teams, and he does a fine job of that. Then he gets, Ibuka and Smith over there at Ohio State, and he's lights out there. Like, he just, time and time again, he passes every single test, and we have no reason to believe he's not going to do that again this year.
I think, maybe, you mentioned the high school practice against Jeremiah Smith, maybe the college practice against Elijah Surratt too, another kind of bigger receiver.
That's a good call. I mean, when you grow up in high school with Jeremiah Smith and then you play him again in your second year in college, you just go, well, who am I supposed to be afraid of?
Yeah, that's it.
I've already won the battle against this guy. I'm good. If you can win that battle, you're really win. He might have given him and Jahdae Barron in Texas probably. Those are the 2 guys that were the only ones really to go, okay, we did a pretty good job on Jeremiah. So now Ponce, look, I've said it all offseason. This Indiana defense is going to be really good again. Michael Kamara coming back, right? Aiden Fisher's coming back. Ponce, got some other guys. Their defense is still going to be really good. It's just a matter of if they can replace that production they had on offense. But Ponce, no question, one of the best players in the country.
And maybe his 5'9", 170 pound size will keep him from playing outside corner in the NFL. But he could be a great slot corner. How physical he is.
Just get him on my team. I don't care.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out later. We'll just get him on my football team, and he's going to be fine. He's just spectacular.
I love it. Listen, as an NFL draft prospect, yes, Avieon Terrell should be above him, but that's not where we're ranking today. We're ranking corners in college football. D'Angelo Ponce, for me, is number 3 on this list. Dalton, unfortunately, our number 2 corner in the country, is a guy who might not play at all in 2025. We don't know yet. That is Jermod McCoy from Tennessee, and I say that because he tore his ACL, unfortunately, during a workout in January. So he might play in 2025, although I'd be pretty pessimistic on that right now. But this guy was the favorite to be easily CB1, in my opinion, in the 2026 NFL draft. He was a lockdown player for Tennessee this past year after transferring from Oregon State. 89.6 coverage grade in 2024, second among returning Power 4 corners. 4 interceptions were tied for second among returning Power 4 corners as well. Great ball skills and elite athleticism and great movement ability. He had a near perfect 99.9 game athleticism score, meaning he's almost a 100th percentile athlete according to our player tracking data at cornerback. So an elite athlete. The torn ACL is a big bummer for Tennessee's defense this upcoming year. Maybe he'll come back to school for another year. Maybe a guy in the 2027 class, another elite player for the 2027 NFL draft. Hopefully we can see Jermod McCoy this year, but the torn ACL might make it a little hard.
Yeah, he was so good last year. It sucks. This is the injury that on this list and maybe any of our lists that really sucks to see, because McCoy became an elite player last year after transferring in from Oregon State. 89.6 coverage grade, 4 picks, 6 pass breakups, locking down opponents' best receivers all year in the SEC, going toe-to-toe with Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah got him once on a go ball because he gets everybody, but no, McCoy was so good last year, and that's all we can say really is we just hope for a full recovery, because he's a guy who looked like he was going to be maybe the best cornerback in this upcoming draft class and a first-round pick. And so if it's 26, we still might have those expectations, although, we saw what happened this past draft with some guys with injury questions dropping out of the first round. But if it's then or if it's in 2027, man, this guy, he's one of the best corners in college football, no question. Locking down SEC receivers all year last year was great.
And he did tear it in January. It wasn't like it happened in the spring. So literally week 1 of the college football season will be about 9 months since he tore it, which is usually kind of the earliest that some guys come back from a torn ACL. 12 months is like usually kind of the latest you see for guys, which would be December for him, which is basically after everything's happened. So who knows? He might be able to come back at some point during the season, but I don't know. It's going to be a little tough for Jermod McCoy.
There's going to be no need to rush it. I mean, here's the thing. Last year's tape was so good. He's an NFL player. We do know that for sure. It's just a matter of if he's trying to get in that first-round conversation. We saw it this past year. Ben Morrison, Siobhan Revel, Will Johnson, guys, all 3 of those guys had first-round talent, but the injury concerns were the big issue there. So if they feel like, okay, I'm going to drop to day 2, maybe, and this is where NIL comes into it also, right, of how much are you going to pay this guy? And who knows, you mentioned coming back late in the season. We don't really know where Tennessee's season is going right now. We think their defense is still going to be pretty good, but offensively there's a lot of questions, and it's a loaded SEC. So there's a lot of variability with this, but no question, at the time that you made this list before this injury news came out, McCoy absolutely deserved to be. I mean, he was just spectacular last year. Even though we talked a lot about Tennessee's D-line and those guys, he was the rock of their secondary. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the country.
He's so good, man. And I think, he should look at what happened in the 2025 draft with guys like Will Johnson, Siobhan Revel, and Ben Morrison and say, maybe I should go back to school for another year. And instead of declaring for the draft after not playing at all in 2024, or 2025, I should say, because that might lead to him falling out of the first round when he is a first-round caliber prospect. So we might see him come back for the 2026 season if he doesn't play at all this upcoming year for Tennessee. But still, great player, still should be shouted out here because he is absolutely one of the top corners in the country if he's fully healthy. At number 1, though, Dawn, is Leonard Moore from Notre Dame. True sophomore Leonard Moore, who definitely will be in the 2027 NFL draft, unless he comes back to school for another year and goes in the 2028 NFL draft. But this guy should be probably a top 10 pick in 2027 with how good he was in his true freshman year at Notre Dame. And Dawn, this is actually the 3rd time that a true sophomore is my number 1 player in the country on these position rankings. This actually only happened a few times earlier in PFF history. Derek Stingley Jr. in 2020, Tank Bigsby in 2021, Brock Bowers in 2022, Caleb Downs in 2024. So we never had 2 true sophomores in a year be number 1. We have 3 this year. That just shows how elite the true freshman class was in college football this past year. He finished his true freshman year as the 3rd most valuable cornerback in college football, according to our wins above average metric. The only 2 above him were Jahdae Barron and Travis Hunter. 2 first-round picks in the NFL draft. That's some pretty good company to be in if you're Leonard Moore right there. Very man-heavy scheme at Notre Dame, and he thrived in it, man. 82.5 grade in man coverage, 3rd among all cornerbacks in college football. Only a 3-star recruit coming out of high school, too. It's not like this guy was a 5-star, number 1 overall type of player like Jeremiah Smith that just kind of lived up to it immediately. Leonard Moore was not known as that. Then Ben Morrison goes down with the season-ending injury. Leonard Moore stepped up and was one of the elite cornerbacks immediately as a true freshman. 6'2", he mirrors receivers at an elite level already. In fact, in single coverage, he had 42 targets against him. Only 16 of them were caught. This guy's an elite cornerback, man, and a lot like how Derek Stingley Jr. was just, we knew he was that kind of guy after his true freshman year. It's the same way with Leonard Moore.
Oh, Leonard Moore is it. And I can remember sitting here on this show in the middle of last season when Benjamin Morrison, when they announced he was out for the season, we went, oh, that's an issue,
huge,
right?
yeah.
Like they're so good on defense and they're so good in coverage. Who's going to step up for it? Is it going to be Christian Gray? I mean, obviously Jordan Clark in the slot, and Leonard Moore goes in there, and he was actually even better than that. 86.5 coverage grade is higher than Morrison put up in any of his 3 seasons, and that's as a true freshman playing man coverage 61% of the time. Notre Dame basically, as they got comfortable with Moore in their defense, more and more as the year went on, they just went, just keep calling cover one and see if anybody can get open, and they certainly couldn't, and that's because Leonard Moore all of a sudden became the best player among them. 6'2", 190 pounds, lights out in press coverage, cover one constantly under Al Golden. We'll see where it goes under the new defensive coordinator here at Notre Dame, and also identical 86.5 grade in run defense. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy who does it all, who's lights out in man coverage. You mentioned it, mirrors receivers as well as anybody in the country. Was he the most valuable corner? No, he's what, third? You said the
behind
third?
Jadae Barron and Travis Hunter.
That says it all, right? I mean, that's all. As a true freshman, playing on a team making a national championship run, that's and playing again 61% man
Notre Dame's
coverage.
coverage unit was probably the biggest reason why they made it to the national.
Just a lights out. I mean, you talk about we talk about on the other side with your Penn State Nittany Lions didn't have a wide receiver catch a ball against Notre Dame in that game. Well, this is the reason why, because they weren't getting open on Leonard Moore. They just couldn't do it. So, I mean, you look at he's lights out. There's just not much else you can say to it. When you have a guy, there's just less and less. We've talked about so many of these other players being great in zone coverage. You don't get a whole lot of lights out man coverage corners anymore, right? The Surtans and the Sauce Gardners and guys like that. This is one of them. And I mean, Notre Dame's got him for 2 more years. Good luck. No fly zone at Notre Dame still with this group. The group of corners is spectacular, but Leonard Moore especially, just another special football player coming up as a true sophomore.
Absolutely. Just another guy. I just remember after Derek Stingley Jr.'s true freshman year, we're like, that's it right there. Like, he's an elite player, and obviously he's now an elite corner in the NFL. I think Leonard Moore is on a similar kind of career arc, which is crazy considering, again, even Stingley was a top 5 recruit coming out of high school. Leonard Moore was a 3-star. So, Dawn, I know you're not a big fan of the recruiting rankings. Another, one right there.
Underdogs winning the battle.
Yeah, there you go.
See that? I got him. I got Dylan Thieneman. Safety we'll get to. What is he? Not even a top 900 guy. We got some underdogs we work in here.
Exactly.
I'm glad to see that. But of course, Notre Dame finds them and they just go, oh no, everybody else missed the boat. They'll add the other 2 stars onto there. Yeah,
it's crazy. Like I said before, the 3rd true sophomore to be a number 1 overall player at his position going into next year, joining Jeremiah Smith and Colin Simmons, and even wide receiver and edge defender, number 2. True sophomore. Ryan Williams at wide receiver, Dylan Stewart at edge defender. So it just shows how ridiculously insane this past true freshman class was in college football and how absurdly loaded the 2027 NFL draft is shaping up to be right now. Leonard Moore, my number 1 cornerback in college football. Kind of recap the top 10. Honorable mention, Eli Bowen from Oklahoma, another true sophomore. At number 10, Cameron Calhoun from Alabama, transferring there from Utah. Number 9, Jontez Williams from Iowa State. Number 8, Jeremiah Wilson, now at Florida State after transferring in there from Houston. Number 7, A.J. Harris from Penn State. Number 6, Malik Muhammad from Texas. Number 5, Chandler Rivers from Duke. Number 4, Avieon Terrell from Clemson. Number 3, D'Angelo Pons from Indiana. Number 2, Jermod McCoy from Tennessee. And at number 1, Leonard Moore from Notre Dame. All right, Dawn, we know Eli Bowen you think should be somewhere in the top 10. Anything else you would change about my top 10 list?
No, I think it's pretty solid. I don't have any issue with that. I'll be interested to see who kind of emerges to the top, especially with McCoy not playing this year and who else would move up this list after the season. I think more so to me it's the depth of the position and talking about this is a list. I said this at wide receiver when you did it, but you probably could have made a top 20 with
easily.
These corners. There are some talented players who are not. You mentioned Ashton Hampton also over there at Clemson with Terell. A guy I really like at the group of 5 level, Josh Moten, who's going with his head coach Charles Huff from Marshall to Southern Miss this year. He was one of the highest graded corners in the country. He's a good player. Maybe we get a bounce back from Sicario Davis in year 2 at Washington, right? Or Ricardo Hallman from Wisconsin's a ball hawk. I mean, there's a lot. Amarion McCoy from Boise State. You could have made a top 20 here, and I would have gone, you know what? This is a really talented group of 20 guys here that we could talk about, all of them as prospects at some point. So I think that's really the depth of this position. to me, when I look at it, it's still one of the best positions in college football is the amount of talent coming back at corner.
There's a couple guys I know for NFL draft fans that you'll be surprised that isn't on this list. I want to shout out here Mansour Delane, now at LSU, transferring there from Virginia Tech. I like what he did a lot last year at Virginia Tech. Just want to see a little bit more from him. I think he had a really good year a couple of years ago. Just want to see him kind of bounce back to that form. And I think the other one was DJ McKinney from Colorado.
Yeah.
That's another guy.
Another player, him and Preston Hodges back too, right?
Yep.
And I think another team that a lot of man coverage they run over there. Deion Sanders is not shy about the man coverage. Him and Robert Livingston. I mix it up a little bit as the year went on last year, but no, their secondary should still be in a good place. Certainly, I know they're losing. When you lose Travis Hunter, it doesn't make it easy, but when you have McKinney and then Preston Hodge too in the slot there, both really good players. So McKinney's somebody we're going to be looking out for sure out there in Colorado.
And 3 more true sophomores I want to throw in. You mentioned already one of them in Ashton Hampton. Jay Crawford was really good at Auburn last year, and then O.J. Frederick Jr. from Miami. Only allowed 0.45 yards per coverage snap. I believe it was among the best in college football last year.
That'll do.
So one of the only things going right in Miami secondary last year.
And then even you got the chat in there earlier about Jermaine Matthews as well, and Davison Igbinosun starting across from him. I mean, Ohio State, they just always have him, right? We know Igbinosun's pretty good. Got to cut down the penalties a little bit, but you mentioned it. Matthews is talented too. If he was a breakout guy, I think isn't it Jair Hill for Michigan too? Yep. I mean, we could go around a lot of different places and find some darn good corners. There's a lot of talented guys at a lot of different schools.
Dalen Everett from Georgia, I want to shout him out.
I like him too. I like him a lot too.
Damani Jackson has all the tools in the world. Want to see him kind of get a little bit better, but I think he's another guy at Alabama to know for next year. So yeah, a lot of great corners in college football.
Xavier Scott from Illinois, right?
Yeah, good player.
I mean, another team, a ton of man-to-man coverage. We're going to be watching them a lot too. So I mean, there is no shortage of really darn talented corners.
No,
no shortage at all.
A ton of guys that could have been here on this top 10 list, but those were my top 10 cornerbacks in college football. Only one more position ranking for you guys. That is my top 10 safeties in college football. But we still have plenty more rankings coming on this channel because next week we'll start with the position units in college football, meaning secondaries, O-line, D-line, linebacker units, running back units, quarterback rooms, receiving cores, all of the top 10 in college football for teams-wise for those coming very soon.
Certainly won't start any controversy with any of those.
Oh, no. Some of them are already kind of rolling out on PFF.com. You're going to get a quick sneak peek on those lists, and yeah, there's a lot of controversy for some of those already on Twitter right now. But Thursday will be my top 10 safeties in the country, and then next week we'll kick off our top 10 position units in college football. But again, Thursday, be here for my top 10 safeties. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of these videos coming out very soon. For producer Eli back there, for Dalton Wassman, I'm Max Chadwick. We'll see you guys on Thursday with my top 10 safeties in college football.